Ladies and gents, we are looking at a classic. You see, once upon a time, we had nothing but static rolls on our weapons. This was, of course, in year 1 of Destiny 2. Some weapons, which just naturally felt better than others, had poor perks. Then on the other side of the aisle, you had weapons that didn't feel that good, but they had very good perks. But then, you had weapons that married up the two, both lethality and consistency. And that was essentially what Old Fashioned did back in year 1. Today, guys, we're going to talk about how to get this hand cannon, what rolls you can obtain on it, and how this once dominant world champion hand cannon performs in the current meta. First up, how to get this weapon. It's just a roll drop. Any legendary Ingram in the game could potentially drop it. But I actually went to Raul and I burnt close to 3,500 legendary marks. You can just keep doing this over and over again, and eventually he may drop one. Although I did have people say they burnt upwards to like 5,000 shards without even seeing one Old Fashioned. Pretty demoralizing. But there is a lot of weapons and armor pieces in this loot pool, so it's not a very common thing to get. Now, we ended up getting 4, so I would say we got pretty lucky. None of these I would say is the god roll, but I would say we're approaching that territory. Now, I got one with kill clip, which the main thing to take away from that one, I just wanted to see how it performed, you know? A 140 with kill clip, especially since I'm combining this with one-eye mass, which by the way, we have got to review here soon, considering it received a nerf in this sandbox. I was actually able to 2-tap pretty regularly. Also got another roll for PvP, which I didn't think was going to be good, but I was like, you know what? Let's just try it. And this was actually a steady round, quick draw, hip fire grip hand cannon. 9 times out of 10, that's an automatic dismantle. Turns out, it performed well. I don't get it, boys. I have no idea. And considering the range nerf that we got in Shadowkeep, range matters, but it's not the say-all, end-all. And considering that Old Fashioned cannot roll with something like rangefinder, I opted for more stability in order to combat that recoil. And that was another thing I found out about Old Fashioned. The more rolls that I played with, the more I thought, man, did this hand cannon not receive the recoil buff that the rest of our other hand cannons received? I almost feel like Old Fashioned and its recoil animation is still stuck in pre-Shadowkeep. That recoil animation is supposed to be much less, resulting in visually the gun settling before your next consecutive shot goes off. Now, this is a change that affected both 140s and 150s. I would say more noticeably on 150s, especially for console users, as for the longest time, 150s weren't really that usable on console. But to me, playing with Old Fashioned and playing with a number of rolls, I had to resort to this super stable Old Fashioned over one that would be spec for range, just because I felt like the weapon was a little inconsistent. And a note about inconsistency, especially with hand cannons, you don't really know how inconsistent a hand cannon is until you start taking incoming fire. Obviously, anyone can line up 3 shots in a row if the target is standing still and not shooting you. But the moment you start taking incoming fire, you start to really see the deviation there, inconsistencies, especially between 140s and 150s. I feel like 150s, especially on PC, handle flinch overall better than 140s. But that's also because the follow-up shot is just slightly faster. But I think a big thing that plays into that is the recoil animation overall for those weapons are much snappier. Old Fashioned in its recoil pattern seems to almost be stuck in year 1. Now, my other 2 rolls are more gauged at PvE, as they both came with Surrounded. Now, Surrounded plus Surrounded spec, normally an option I like on a shotgun, right? You're normally in close proximity of your enemies. Procking something like Surrounded, especially with Surrounded spec, is not a hard thing to do with the close quarter combat weapon. To me, yes, the bump there in damage is nice. Which takes us to the god roll portion of this video, especially now that we've actually played with it. Considering I got to play with the roll that was a kill clip roll, that's about the most lethal thing you can get on this, for both PvP and for PvE. And of course, an obvious one would be kill clip and feeding frenzy together. But man, I cannot get over the fact how much I enjoyed the more stable roll on my Old Fashioned, which is gonna make me kind of choose my perks differently here. I think Slide Shot is gonna go the extra mile, especially for my more aggressive players that play with hand cannons. Slide Shot probably will allow you to still rock accurized rounds, as well as a range barrel perk, if of course you're gonna be sliding and procking it. Again, we tested Slide Shot a few weeks ago. To get the full benefits of it, you pretty much have to be shooting while mid-sliding. It's not one of those things that you slide and it will continue to carry over into the next gunfight. You have to be sliding and shooting if you want to get the full benefit of it out of that gunfight, as the duration there and that window for that boost in range and stability is extremely short. Now, Slide Shot doesn't prod kill clip, but if you still wanted to put those two together, like I said, I was using this with quick draw as my trait. No reloading perks, nothing helping my hand cannon here, other than of course like my enhanced hand cannon loading perk. I still think kill clip is a fantastic option. You're just gonna have a slightly slower reload speed than say with something like feeding frenzy. But this also opens up a number of other avenues. You've got moving target. which would be fantastic on this hand cannon. You also got snapshot, which there are a few 150s, waking vigil especially, that I really like with snapshot. And once you start dabbling with snapshot a little bit on your hand cannons, you start to be addicted to that snappiness, right? As it kind of like serves as a 0.5 quick draw, right? As you can be aiming down sights immediately on the draw. No lie, that snappiness is pretty addictive. You also got explosive payload, which don't overlook. In a role where hand cannon range has been chopped, the ability to just tack on some damage from a range is extremely nice. And if you combine something like explosive payload with slide shot here, you'll temporarily boost that range. You'll also get a boost in range because of explosive payload. And let's not forget the flinch that explosive payload deals, which is why I hate going up against people using explosive rounds, especially on a hand cannon. Normally, if I run into like a 1v1 scenario, even if they get the first shot on me, I'll most likely duel it out. I may not win every time, but I feel confident that I might get the 3-tap or something, or do something, juke them out to be able to get the win. But if the guy's got explosive rounds, especially something like Sunshot, if they land the first shot, I most likely pull out of that gunfight. I pretty much dip, boys, because I know if they tag me already once, that flinch that's present inside a game, I'm already reaching that multiplier even faster, especially visually. And the chances of me winning this gunfight drops dramatically simply because he not only landed the first shot, but he landed it with explosive payload. So again, do not overlook this perk, especially in this sandbox. Now for PvE, you've got two options. Feeding Frenzy Kill Clip seems like an obvious one, or if you can deal with not having the fastest reload in the world, you can still apply something like Flared Magwell for that plus 15 in reload speed, or maybe even something like Tactical Mag, which also gives you plus 10 in reload speed. That'll pick our reload speed up. No, it won't max it out, but it'll put it somewhere in the 60s to almost 70. Combine that with something like Enhanced Hand Cannon Loader, I think you can live without Feeding Frenzy, even in something like PvE. And if that's the case, I really want to see Demolitionist here. I think you can still proc Kill Clip just fine, but Demolitionist will give you back your grenade every single time. Now, something I've never even tried is Demolitionist and Kill Clip together, as technically, Demolitionist states that activating your grenade ability reloads the weapon from reserves. Now, I think it's very unlikely that it will proc Kill Clip, as Slide Shot doesn't even proc Kill Clip, but if it does, oh my god, that would be the roll. But even then, if you had to rely on just your reload speed to use Old Fashioned inside of PvE, things like Flared Magwell, Tactical Mag will make things a little easier for you. Now, as far as Surrounded goes, Surrounded does throw on a bigger buff than what Kill Clip brings to the table. Approximately 40% to our precision damage and our body shot damage. As long as you have 3 or more enemies around you, you will have Surrounded proc. The issue is, it's not as easy procking as you think, especially consider most ads are kind of like spread out. Unless you're like in a horde mode similar to like Escalation Protocol or maybe the Sundial, Surrounded in like a strike territory or maybe even a raid territory is a little more difficult to proc, or at least on a hand cannon. I honestly wish Surrounded and Surrounded Spec had a little more range. Like I wish the mod itself, considering that instead of having a mod like Minor Spec on or maybe even Major Spec, you're completely committing to Surrounded. I wish the Surrounded Spec mod itself increased the area in which it procs the Surrounded perk. Yes, it increases the damage. Yes, the bonus damage lingers for longer, but that duration is not really that long. On top of that, Surrounded in general, especially on a primary weapon, is a lot more difficult to proc. And again, if we were rocking like a Kill Clip roll, you could rock Kill Clip, Minor Spec, combined with Demolitionist and some reload perks. I think that would be the way I would go. All in all, guys, Old Fashioned has returned to us. It may not be the king of all hand cannons in this sandbox, but it's definitely a contender. The only other answer that I want is that recoil animation. Did Old Fashioned receive the adjustment to recoil to 140s and 150s when Shadowkeep launched, or did it miss this hand cannon? Again, I'm only going off of my own perspective, and I will say loading out the hand cannon with stability made a big difference, which is just kind of going against our roots completely when it comes to hand cannons, right? Because like when you pick up a hand cannon, all you think about is specking for range, or that's what we've done. But all of these hand cannons stay between 26, 27 meters to 30 meters, whether it has max range or not. And I will say the recoil in general, yes, it was more tamed with more stability, but I don't know. If Bungie came out tomorrow and said, hey, Old Fashioned did not receive the adjustment that our other 140 and 150 round per minute hand cannons received, I can definitely see that. Now, 140s just in general, and I didn't really want to get into it in this video, 140s and 150s, they're just kind of too much in the same street. They both require the same amount of shots to get a kill. They both have similar range. You just got 150 150s that can do it faster than what 140s can. So the separation between the two archetypes is not really there, which is why I wouldn't mind some adjustments toward 140s, because when it's all said and done, if I had to choose a hand cannon to use in like the sweatiest of environments, 9 times out of 10, I would probably choose a 150. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.